Hello, family. In today's world, the Black church and Black nonprofits are called upon to do more than just charity. But with limited resources, how do you maximize your impact? Welcome to today's Mindcraft Mashup, where we look into two books. The first one is The One Thing by Gary Keller, and the second book is From Generosity to Justice by Darren Walker. We'll explore how prioritizing your efforts can drive meaningful change and create a more just world. If you're ready to move beyond generosity and focus on justice, this video is for you. In Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, it teaches us about focus. But it's not just about being productive. It's about identifying the one thing that's going to make everything easier or unnecessary. In other words, what is the one thing you should be doing over everything? So for example, for me, for nonprofit fundraising management or NFM, I want to reach more Black churches and more Black nonprofits. So how do I do that? I've identified the best way for me to do that is to speak at Black churches, conferences, or Black nonprofit conferences. So the one thing I need to do is to promote NFM's conference presentations. That's the one thing I need to do. So what is the one thing you need to do? Now, in Darren Walker's book, From Generosity to Justice, he focuses on focusing on justice and not just charity. In other words, he's looking at trying to change the cause of the issue versus the symptoms of the issue. In other words, Walker often says in the book, modern or traditional charity only focuses on what's happening now, on generosity, but it doesn't focus on justice. In other words, changing the system that has caused the problem in the first place. That's what we need to be focusing on. So to truly make a difference, that means we need to focus on the one thing that will dismantle systems of inequality. So for nonprofits, that might mean shifting from food pantries to focusing on advocating for policies that will eliminate food insecurities. Personally, I feel like we should do both. We should help those caught in the system, but also working to shut down the causes that cause them to be caught in the system in the first place. So doing both, justice as well as generosity. For example, many of my clients have food pantries, but they also have youth programs. They also have employment programs, and they also have programs that help advocate for better policies of justice in the community. So they do both. They help individuals that are currently caught in the system, but they're also looking at trying to shut down the systems that cause inequality in the first place. So the one thing is more than just a program. It also becomes a systematic change. So we need to think different, think more. So as leaders, try this. Ask yourself, what are the programs we have in our organizations that address social injustices? Then ask yourself, what is the one thing that we can do that will most effectively stop the social injustice and create more equality within the system, thereby choking off the cause of the issues that many in our community are plagued with, like food insecurities, unemployment, social economic injustice, all sorts of things. What is the one thing that you can do that's going to address most of those issues? And then focus on that. So here's our first quick quiz, and we have one question. According to Walker, what is the difference between generosity and justice when it comes to giving? Leave your answer in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as many as possible. Now we want to look at prioritizing initiatives for systematic change. Walker introduces a continuum of awareness in giving. This helps us evaluate where our efforts fall. It can be from basic charity to systematic justice. Now, Keller's The One Thing helps us prioritize our initiatives within this framework. We must ask ourselves, does this initiative address a symptom or a root cause? We must also ask ourselves, which initiative has the most significant long-term impact on justice? And finally, we also have to ask ourselves, what initiative is going to help those currently caught in the system? We can do both. It's about making conscious choices to work on initiatives that truly affect systematic change, while at the same time not forgetting those currently affected by those systems. For example, advocacy and policy change addresses systematic change, but food banks and after-school programs address change that are currently happening to those currently caught in the system. So I'd like to ask leaders currently watching this video to map out their organization's program and place them on Walker's continuum of awareness. Basically, you want to look at which programs are addressing injustices and which programs are charity. And that's basically affecting or addressing those currently caught in the system. Now, here is the second quick quiz, and there is one question. What is the continuum of awareness and how can it help your organization? Leave your answers in the comments below. Next, we'll address the one thing on listening to those with marginalized voices. Walker emphasizes the importance of listening to and empowering those most affected by injustice. Now, this aligns perfectly with Keller's The One Thing. And our one thing must be to prioritize listening to the voices of the marginalized. Now, this means actively seeking their input, valuing their experience, and making sure they're a part of the decision-making process. This shifts the power dynamic in philanthropy and ensures our efforts are truly community-driven. For example, when I'm putting together a case for support, part of the interviewees that we interview are the beneficiaries of the said program. Because without their input, the program design is simply our best guess of what's the best thing to do. With their input, it's community-driven from experience of those who actually use the program. Which do you think are better? Those without their input or those with their input? So leaders, identify a community that you serve. Plan a listening session to hear their reasons or their thoughts on what are the root causes of the challenges that they face. Ask them for solutions, and finally, ask them what they need today. So here's our third quick quiz. Why is it crucial for philanthropists to listen to marginalized voices? Leave your answers in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. Now we'll address moral courage as the one thing. Walker calls for moral courage in philanthropy. That means confronting uncomfortable truths in inequity in philanthropy and our role in perpetuating it. So our one thing means to act with moral courage even when it's difficult. This could involve advocating for more policy changes, addressing systematic biases, and redistributing resources more equitably. Keller's principle reminds us that focusing on impactful actions will make other less impactful activities less important. For example, my firm is being hired to raise funds for some community centers in the South. These community centers, they address systematic change as well as current needs for those that are caught in the systems. So these community centers not only address the current needs of the individuals in the community, but also address the root causes of those needs. So leaders, I'd like you to take this one action. Identify one uncomfortable truth your organization needs to address. Then brainstorm one courageous activity to confront it, then confront it. And now we come to our fourth quick quiz. There is one question. What does moral courage mean in the context of philanthropy? Leave your answers in the comments below. Next, we'll address collaboration as the one thing for systematic change. Both Keller and Walker emphasize the importance of collaboration. Keller talks about how focusing on the one thing requires minimizing distractions. Walker stresses that systematic change requires working with governments, nonprofits, and communities. Therefore, our other one thing should be strategic collaborations. By partnering with others, we can leverage resources, share expertise, and come together for broader, more systematic change. For example, one of our clients, when we first started working with them, they started a food bank. And when they first started, it was effective, but it was small. And they tried to grow it, and it ended up burning out many of the volunteers, many of the donors, and such. But when they started collaborating with some of the individuals in the communities, some of the other food banks, some of the other grocery stores, some of the farmers, some of the distributors, it started to spread out some of the resources, and they were able to leverage the connections that those were experts in those particular fields. So instead of doing delivery, which they weren't really good at, they had others do the delivery. And then bringing in the community, that was what they were good at. So they brought in the community. Others delivered the food and brought the food to the food bank. And it was a wildly successful collaboration, and it's thriving today, and they're serving more people, and it's all because of collaboration. Instead of trying to do something on their own, they're now a community-based organization that's highly effective. And for more tips on community collaboration, check out this video on how to get community-wide support on fundraising beyond your walls. So leaders, I'm asking you now to look at potential community partners, identify them, put together a list, schedule a meeting, and look for ways for synergistic approaches to where you can come together and be more than the sum of the parts. In other words, be larger than what you could do individually by coming together as a collaboration. And by the way, you're likely looking for funding for some of these programs. And the more you collaborate, the more likely you get funding. One of the first questions nonprofit organizations, I should say nonprofit foundations, ask is, who are you collaborating with? So make sure you're collaborating, not only for funds, but also for resources, for ideas. Collaboration is a key word. And now we come to our next quick quiz. Why is collaboration essential for achieving systematic change? Leave your answers in the comments below. Next, we'll address the one thing action plan for justice. Now let's synthesize these ideas into an action plan for leaders. First, you need to identify your one thing for justice. What is the most impactful way your organization can contribute to systematic change? Next, you want to prioritize your initiatives. Focus your organization on causes that address root causes, as well as those that are caught in the system today. Use Walker's continuum of awareness. Next, you want to center marginalized voices. You want to really make sure you're listening and empowering those affected in the community by your programs. So you want to make sure you're designing programs that they need, they understand, and that they want. Next, you want to act with moral courage. You want to be willing to confront uncomfortable truths and advocate for justice, even when it's challenging, especially when it's challenging. Lastly, you want to collaborate strategically. You want to seek partnerships to amplify your impact and create lasting systematic change beyond your walls. By focusing on these one things, we can move beyond generosity and focus on justice and create a more equitable world. Now let's wrap this up and let's have a call to action. In this Mindcraft Mashup, we've learned that focusing on the one thing and looking at generosity to justice, Black churches and nonprofits can be powerful agents of change. Remember, it's not enough to just be generous. We have to strive for justice, which is much more challenging. By identifying our one thing for justice and prioritizing our efforts, we can create a more equitable world for everyone. If you thought this video was helpful, please like and subscribe. And more importantly, share this video with your colleagues. Let's get stronger together. And you may want to check out this other amazing Mindcraft mashup of how to overcome your fear of fundraising in 5 seconds. It's really a great video. So now that we're done, what is your one thing we're going to focus on next week?